The way we come into this world leaves a blueprint in our life and in our soul. The way we come into this world reveals our society, reflects and affects our culture.
I will say the more connection and mindfulness, compassion that we can bring to a situation of a transition, whether that's birth or death or, a major life transition, affects how we move through that and who we end up being on the other side of that. So I think in part, the thing that doulas provide is again, they create a space, they create a place for you to have an experience that is uniquely yours, and for you to feel confident in that even when things don't go the way that you think they're going to go. So in my own case, the birth went great, but I had extensive bleeding, and I ended up being transferred from the home birth that I was having to the hospital. And this was a very scary process for me. And again, not speaking the language very well, especially going into a medical situation where the language was very specialized and I didn't know any of these words and terminologies. And I had just given birth to a brand new baby, and I was expecting to be home with her and have a meal and just be loved on by my husband and my doula and my midwife, and that didn't happen. And so there was a lot of fear and anger and frustration. But one of the things that Maria, my doula, did, which was above and beyond, was she took my child home and took care of her for those first 2 days when I could not be with her. And even in that grief and that sadness of like, my body did not do what I thought it was going to do, like she helped me, one, feel comfortable that my child was taken care of when I was not there to do it. And two, that there wasn't something wrong with me for my body not doing what I thought it was supposed to do. Like it did what it was supposed to do. It birthed my child. And I share all that because I think what I was trying to say in this, what doulas do that is not something that you can just easily write on a piece of paper as like their qualifications and the things that they offer, is they create this space for you to work through whatever it is that your experience is, and to know that, and to be confident in yourself and trust yourself. I hold Maria in my heart as somebody very, very different than anybody else in my entire life, because she really created a space for me to figure out who I was as a young woman. And then, I'm going to get emotional, and then transitioning into becoming a mother. And she presented that to me in a way that was really new, especially being a US citizen that lived in Greece at the time. I lived in a different culture. I didn't speak the language very well. I felt really ungrounded. And she was somebody that was consistent throughout that entire 9 to 12 month period of time, maybe even a little bit longer than that, because she was quite involved in the postpartum. And it was this feeling of just being wholly supported, and like it was not only in preparing myself for birth. She helped me not listen to what everybody else was saying around me about how birth, pregnancy, childbirth, parenting should look, and really encouraged me to listen to my own voice and hear my own wisdom. It changed my life, really. That sounds so dramatic, but I don't know how else to explain it except that it was work that deeply touched my soul. The pregnancy was perfect until a certain point where there was a suspicion for a heart failure. And in the hospital without the doula, the experience would not have been, the experience was not good in the hospital, but it would have been a lot worse without the doula. The doula helped kind of also working around all that. It was, in the end, it was fear of the unknown, fear of, in Switzerland, nobody witnesses births anymore. You're not in a family construct where, you know, like, oh, my aunt had a baby when you're small and you witness that. It's closed in a hospital room and you just hear horror stories, because this is the system right now in Switzerland, that it just ends up always in horror stories. And all my friends, they told me this horrible things, and I always thought, like, I want to have a family, but why do I have to do this? The horror stories that they were telling us is mostly about not being able to make decisions over your body. So things are just done to you that you don't know why, you maybe don't agree with it. And it's all with putting the fear in you that you don't want to put your child at risk. And with the first one, of course, I didn't experience that, because it was such a powerful, such a like peaceful experience. And in the hospital, then I got to know that side of so the due date is then and then. Now you're 5 days over. If we're not going to induce you tomorrow, you're going to put your child at risk. Is that what you want? And this is how they speak to you. So if I would not have had the positive experience and somebody that taught me to believe in my body and to believe that I know what's best. Of course, there's always the medical side of it that we're grateful in case of emergencies and stuff. But also what we learned is that in very rare cases, it is that emergency. And even though we had a child that was examined right after the birth, because there was a suspicion for a thinning of the aorta, the birth was not a risk birth. So until he was born, there was absolutely no risk of that. And throughout the whole process, they always said, like, oh, his heartbeats are going, you know, during a contraction, his heartbeats are going down. Yeah, of course they're going down. And this is what the doula explained. Like, this is just natural, you know. If he doesn't come out, if you're not gonna do it right and press him out now, we're gonna have to get him. You know, this is the language that they speak in the hospitals. And if I would not have I ignored the midwife, I just talked to the doula. So yeah, these are the horror stories: induction, cesareans, doing the, how do you say the. Yeah, if you're cutting without consent, that happens here. So you have the doula to first of all explain what all these procedures are, as well as the cutting of the umbilical cords. Then afterwards, that with the first one we could, the placenta came and he was still attached to the placenta. In the hospital, they say, like, oh no, this needs to be cut now, and the placenta needs to be forced. It needs to come out right away. All these things that for many women are normal. And we, the doula, educated us on what's natural and what's not, you know. Of course, I saw a little bit with Luciano, with the second one, what it means, how you can end up in a situation like this. But because I had this like amazing experience, that was the doula that guided us through like having this positive experience, and a midwife-based birth, because my pregnancy was completely without any complications, and the birth was without any complications. I have this positive outcome. Without her, I don't know what would have happened, like, because I was in a state of unknowing a lot of things. And in Switzerland, like 5 years ago, nobody talked about home birth. Home birth was very stigmatized. It was very like, are you crazy? If you can go to the hospital and have the safe option, why would you opt for doing something medieval and stay at home? Every time I think back about how he came to this world, like earthside, like Mary always said, it leaves me with peace. I don't know. Luciano, the second one, was way easier, but it was
violent. It was not nice at the hospital. So I think if I would not have had that positive experience on the first one, I don't know how this would have come out in the long run. So I think it made me really empowered. Even in doubts in postpartum time with Bernardo, I kind of thought like, my God, but I did this and I did this well.
Αυτή την ευχαρίστηση και την χαλαρότητα και την ηρεμία και την αισιοδοξία που μου έδινε η Μαρία σαν βοηθός μητρότητας για την έκβαση της εγκυμοσύνης μου, γιατί ήταν μια εγκυμοσύνη που δεν ήμασταν και πολύ σίγουροι αν θα ολοκληρωθεί. Υπήρχε η αγωνία ότι μπορεί να γεννήσουμε καισαρική, τελικά με κρατήσανε στο νοσοκομείο και γέννησα ένα βράδυ από μόνη μου, 23 χρόνια πριν. Η βοήθειά της ήταν πολύτιμη. Το ότι μου έφερε το βίντεο του Λεμπουαγέ και έβαζα και έβλεπα ξανά και ξανά την γυναίκα αυτή που γεννούσε με ήχο, χωρίς να έχει την έκφραση του πόνου και αυτό που δείχνουν όλες τις ταινίες, που γεννάς και σφαδάζεις, ας πούμε, και ουρλιάζεις. Βέβαια, εντάξει, εμένα ήταν και το δεύτερο παιδί μου και είχα ένα φυσιολογικό τοκετό στο πρώτο και ήξερα, ας πούμε, ότι δεν είναι έτσι όπως τα δείχνουν στις ταινίες. Δεν πονάς τόσο πάρα πολύ όπως τα δείχνουνε, αν δεν σε παραβιάσουν, αν δεν σε... αν εξωτερικοί παράγοντες δεν σε αναγκάσουν να έχεις ένα γρήγορο τοκετό και σε αφήσουν με την ησυχία σου και με τους δικούς σου πόνους να γεννήσεις. Ότι είναι κάτι διαχειρίσιμο από το σώμα μας.
I had no idea what I was going to do in there, and it was so incredibly helpful spending that time, particularly with the first doula, to help us really understand, where I could be helpful, what role I could play to make the process go easier for my wife, and I think that was probably one of the biggest game changers. I've been a huge advocate of doulas, and then I think we had the two different complications. They were a voice of calm and reason, and despite complications aren't something you want, they've felt us reassured that these are things that happen. So yeah, I think they're invaluable.
The calm presence, the wealth of knowledge, the just someone soothing to speak to and to answer your questions.
That little baby can come into this world. I think it does start them off on the right foot. I think it also starts the mother off in her journey as well with the little one in a more confident manner. And I think, that is probably something that was great about having the doula, that helped make sure that both pregnancies were vaginal deliveries. Again, I understand sometimes it just can't happen. There's other issues that happen. But I think in certain places in the world, there's such a push for C-sections. And I think that whole process is just so important if it can be done. And I think the doulas are incredibly helpful in trying to push the natural process, which I think leads to just better outcomes for the child, not just in those first half year of life, but I think for their entire lifetimes.
Having that opportunity to meet them in a gentle space would start off the relationship in a really beautiful way. And I think our doulas really helped facilitate that and encourage the consistency with our wishes. And I do think that opens up the kind of the entrance to the world and the introduction to the world in a really nice way for our girls.